Saliba. What a chant and what a win for Arsenal in midweek. They beat Manchester United with 2 goals from corners. Once again, they really are the set-piece kings, the corner kings. And Mikel Arteta has said he's got no problem with his side being called that. No other Premier League side has scored more from that particular kind of set piece since the start of last season. Some critics have said have used that statistic as a way to attack Arsenal's style of play, but Arteta is adamant he wants his side to be the best at everything they do.
Well, we want to be the kings of everything. On set pieces, the best in the world. High press, the best in the world. Attacking open spaces, the best in the world. Best atmosphere in the stadium, and the best at everything. Before it was about we didn't score enough, we were soft defending, we didn't have mentality, we weren't physical enough, we could not challenge the top teams. 22 years, 17 years, 20 years without winning away from home in big matches. We want to be the best at everything. We want to have the best academy, the best individual development for players, the best of the best, recruit the best players, best coaches. That's the aim.
We have to have a serious chat about your business in January, Harry, because if you bring in Rory Delap, do you think you win the title?
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, Arteta's bang on. You know, people used to criticise Arsenal, call them soft-centred, say that they disrespected set pieces to the point where they were then getting punished every week for maybe not defending them as well as others or attacking them as well as others. Arsenal have found something that they can lean on when it's not going their way in open play. And I love it. Like, it's not just the variety to the set-piece routines, which we kind of touched on a little bit earlier in the show, but it's the now sort of mental thing that they've created. Like, if you're an opposition team and you concede a corner to Arsenal, it's like, how do you defend Bukayo Saka now? Do you show him on the inside and let him have a shot with his left foot? Or do you show him on the outside and risk him kicking the ball against you and winning a corner? You don't know what to do.
It's so true.
Like, you don't know what to do. And then the corner comes in, and like before the corner's even been delivered, the ball's placed down. You can see them making all these little signals to each other about what's coming. You've got a group of 6 players gathered at the far post. You're trying to see your man through a crowd. Do you get tight and lose him in the run? Do you try and mark the zone when you don't really know whereabouts they're going to go? And then the delivery gets dropped right underneath the crossbar. What do you do?
Yeah. It's amazing. Do you know what? And you're so right as well about the mental aspect. And do you know what? It's not just the mental aspect for the opposition team. I think it's the opposition fans as well. Because I remember being at St James's Park when Newcastle won that game 1-0.
You had to get that in.
Yeah, had to get that in, of course. But I remember, and Arsenal had a lot of corners in that game. And I remember them winning the kind of first couple, and you had a few fans around going, they're good at these. They're good at these. And you're right. And then they all congregate at the back post, and you think, what are they going to do? And it's such a threat that even the opposition fans as well recognise it and think Arsenal are so good at these set pieces, at these corners. It creates a tension in the stadium as well.
Flip it the other way round. The Arsenal fans feel a sense of anticipation when you get a corner. Like, Arsenal didn't play very well against Manchester United the other night. That's the truth of it. Like, the first half was turgid. It was dull. Arsenal barely created a thing. I don't think there was a shot on target from either side in the first half. And the second half starts and there's a little bit more energy, there's a little bit more intensity. But 9 minutes into the second half, you get lift off at Emirates Stadium from a set piece. And after that, every time Arsenal won a corner, you could feel it. Everybody was getting up. Everybody was in anticipation, excited about what was going to come. And then they get a second one off of Saliba's backside, which is
the funniest way to score a goal. It has to be. Brilliant. It has to be. I just want to ask about Arsenal's form as well recently, because it's obviously picked up since Odegaard came back into the team. Do you feel that given the drop off in his absence, does he go down as your most important player, do you think?
He's always been the most important for me personally, because I think he just sets the tone in so many ways. It's not just about what he does when he's got the ball at his feet. It's about the way he sparks the press, leads the press, makes sure that everybody around him at all times is doing what they're supposed to. I remember when he was appointed captain, people said he's not that kind of character. He tells people when they're not doing their job. He lets people have it on the pitch.
Do you think they're a bit over-reliant on him?
I think you could make that case and you could make that argument, but I think there are some players in football, Ollie, that are just so good that they're irreplaceable. Rodri's another example of that in the Premier League. You take him out of Manchester City, they're a completely different outfit, and people will say, well, they're over-reliant on him. Rodri's don't grow on trees. You're not just going to find another one that you can slot in. And it don't matter what sort of depth you've got, how much quality you think you've got within your ranks. There are some players that are just that good. It puts them among the elite in the world, and that's why they're irreplaceable.
Does that mean, though, that when you look at the fact that Arsenal let go of, obviously, Vieira and Smith Rowe in the last window, you say that Odegaard is obviously irreplaceable, and I agree with that in terms of his talent and his output. He's obviously one of the best, if not the best, in that position in the Premier League. But do you still feel that Arsenal have missed a trick there by either not bringing in a kind of like-for-like replacement and letting two go that can play in that position? Do you still feel that is a mistake?
There was a part of me that started to feel that towards the end of Odegaard's absence. The first month of him being out, Arsenal coped really well. They went away from home and got a lot of good results. And it was because they slightly adjusted the way that they were playing. They started to play with a kind of 4-4-2. Trossard and Havertz were playing as like double false nines, and they got away with it for a while in games where it wasn't demanded on them to be the front-footed side, if that makes sense. But then you look at sort of Emile Smith-Rowe and Fabio Vieira, for example, and if you break it down and you really analyse it, none of them could do what Martin Ødegaard can do. None of them are as fit, first of all, in terms of getting around the pitch. None of them cover the same amount of ground. None of them are robust enough. You know, both had their injury problems throughout their careers. None of them, I think, have the capacity to drop from a 10 into an 8 and help you defensively. I don't think any of them combined with Bukayo Saka in the same way, even though Emile Smith-Rowe and him came up through the youth together. And I just think it gets to the point where you look at those two players and you think, well, you're not going to make it at Arsenal, so let's cash in and let's get the money in for you. I do think Arsenal lack a creative player when Odegaard's out. I do.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
think that they do need to get one in. I think going into January, that would be something I'd be looking at. But I don't think it was a mistake to let Vieira go out on loan where he scored a couple of goals in the last week. He needs it. And Emile Smith-Rowe was never going to make it at Arsenal after all that had happened. So I don't see it as a mistake, but I do see it as an area that we could improve.
You could improve and maybe invest in January. If Odegaard does stay fit, though, it feels to me as if Arsenal are capable of going on the kind of run that we've seen them do before. I mean, even the start of this calendar year was absolutely ridiculous, that run. Where do you see them right now in this title race? And do you think it's an advantage that this time around they're not leading the pack? You know, they are the hound, not the hare, basically.
I think you can package it up like that, and you can look at it through that lens if you want to make yourself feel better as an Arsenal supporter. But I think you'd rather be 7 points clear at the top. Like, that's the reality of the situation. I think, maybe it will suit Arsenal. We'll only know that come the end of the season. In terms of where they are in the title race right now, I think they're just about in it. I think that the position that they're in is not one that's impossible to recover from. But to sit there and say they're right back in it, I think is a little bit far-fetched.
Really? You really don't think... I mean, there's a lot of the season left to go.
Liverpool
have been excellent, but if you think about the fact that Konate's out for a bit, and actually, if you look at that game against Newcastle in midweek, I thought that Newcastle played very well, of course, and their press was back to its best, etc. But I think Liverpool are very different defensively without Konate, of course. He's been one of their, if not... I mean, Van Dijk's been amazing, but he, too, has been so solid at the back. And when it's Gomez and Quansah, they are much easier to get at, in my opinion. Do you not think that might have that might have an effect and actually swing some of the results in Arsenal's favour, because they've got all their best players back? Liverpool might be a bit more suspect defensively. Can you not see that 7 point swing diminishing as Liverpool potentially drop more points in these games?
It can happen. If we take another 2 or 3 points out of their lead by the end of January, then you're talking. Then you've got a race. And as I said, me saying that Arsenal are not quite in it right now, it doesn't mean that I don't think they can drag themselves back into it, but I need to see them go on a longer run. I need to see them putting back-to-back victories together. This was the first time, by the way, this season that they'd won 3 consecutive games in the Premier League.
Wow.
Which is mad when you think about how good they've been over the last 2 years. So that shows that there's been inconsistencies. The fixtures have been horrible, and they've got a lot of those more difficult games out of the way, which is good. So I can understand why people say that it's a position that they could really come back from, but they've got to do it first.
How worried are you about Chelsea in this title race? Do you think they're in it?
I think right now you have to say they are. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit, not scarred, but you know, I don't know if what we saw from Enzo Maresca's Leicester last season is anything to go by. If it is, then his teams do start with a lot of intensity, with a lot of intent. He uses a lot of the same players over and over again. He's got the luxury of a bigger squad at Chelsea, which I think he'll benefit from. But his Leicester side very nearly messed up auto promotion last year. So there's a part of me that thinks that might be around the corner. But for now, you got to give them the respect. They've got a decent run after the Tottenham game coming up as well. You got to pay them the respect, and you got to say they're in it because they're in that position right now.
We're going to talk a bit more about Chelsea a bit later on as well. We're going to look ahead to that game against Tottenham. I like auto promotion, by the way. I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Yeah.
Do you know what I heard the other day? Someone talking about distribution. They called it distro.
I like that.
Distro. I'm going to start using that, I think.
Yeah, me too.
It's an absolute disgrace.